Hi, welcome to another episode of Webcam Sessions. This week we're going to work on creating a beginner practice routine and talk about some of the concepts that I alluded to in last week's episode. If you didn't watch last week, we talked about creating a practice routine and how it's a lot like creating a meal. You got to have different elements so that you get proper nutrition, so that you can, get a good spread, but you also want to make sure that it's fitting your palate of what you enjoy to eat, or in the case of practicing, some of the goals that you have as a player. Obviously, you wouldn't give steak to a vegetarian, much like you wouldn't necessarily want to spend all your time finger picking if you're somebody more interested in strumming, or vice versa, right? So this week, we're going to create a session around we're going to create a meal, right? Practice session around somebody who's really interested in strumming, wants to get more comfortable with different chords, and wants to start to learn a little bit more about some music theory, as well as just getting better on the ukulele in general, but with a focus mostly on strumming. So to start here, we're going to create our 4-course meal. We're going to have our main dish, our side dish, our salad, which nobody really wants, just kidding for salad lovers, hashtag salad lovers, and our dessert, which is going to be everyone's favorite part, right? But let's go ahead and start with the main, the protein, or whatever. We'll drop the meal analogy a little bit here. We're going to work on a strum pattern, and we're going to work on right hand technique to get really comfortable, keeping our hand moving, and to maintain a good sense of rhythm. And to do this, we're going to work on a waltz pattern. And this pattern is actually featured in a course I did here on Ukulele Underground called the Ultimate Ukulele Strumming Course. And this is from the beginner module. And you can check all that information down below. And you can check out that course if you haven't already. But essentially, the pattern that we're going to looks something like this. And you'll see it's a down, miss, down, up, down, up. Now, in previous webcam sessions, I've talked about the importance of missing strings. You'll notice that dotted arrow, and all that means is that we're going to bring our hand, make the motion without striking the strings. To do this, we're going to use 2 chords. We're going to use 2 of my favorite chords. We're going to use what's called an F add 9, and all that an F add 9 is your index finger here on the 1st fret of the E string. We're going to do that for 1 rotation of this pattern. And then the next chord we're going to use is a C7. We just take this index finger and we move it down 1 fret, or 1 string rather, to the 1st fret of the A string. So very simple transition so we can focus more on the strumming. So when you're practicing strumming, it's a really good idea to do it slow and steady, really consistently, and then gradually speed it up. So let's go ahead and try this together. We're going to start on this F add 9. And I'm going to go just back and forth between the F and the C7. I'm actually going to say the strum motions as I make them. So this might be down, miss, down, up, switch, down, miss, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, miss, down, up, down, up. Now let's go ahead and try it a little bit faster. Right, so to build a good practice habit with that, you want to start at a speed that you can comfortably do, and then just gradually increase the speed until it's one that you're not comfortable. And you know that's sort of your limit, and you want to practice up into that zone. But there's an example of a main course, right? A really great strum pattern that you can reinforce and practice. And again, this is meant for more of a beginner player, somebody who's just starting out and wanting to take that next level with their playing. So now let's go ahead and go to the side dish. And the side dish here is going to be some chord practice. So we're going to get comfortable with our left hand, or fretting hand for those southpaw players, and give a really fun example chord progression where we're just going to strum through the chords with our thumb and focus more on the transitions themselves. So for this, we're going to start by playing a C chord, just our ring finger here on the 3rd fret of the A string. That'll be our first chord. Now our next chord is going to be an E7. And what we're going to do is we're going to move our ring finger here to the 2nd fret of the A string, take our middle finger, place it on the 2nd fret of the C, and our index will go here on the 1st fret of the G string. So the first chord again is the C, just that ring finger on 3, then that E7, just pivot it down. And then from here, we're going to go to an A7 chord. And the way we do that is we remove these two fingers, our middle and ring fingers. We move our index finger down one fret, or one string rather, to the first fret of the C string. And that's the first half of the exercise. So we start the C with our ring finger, then the E7, slide the ring down, add the other two fingers, and then our index finger goes over to 1, and we stop. So to practice this, we just want to get some repetition, going 1, and then 2, and 3. And gradually increase the speed, making sure that we're looking at each one of these motions. It takes quite a bit of practice just to do it at this speed at first because of the muscle memory, or rather lack thereof, that you gradually will build as you work on these voicings, right? But what this starts to teach is some pivoting with the finger motions, because we have our C, the ring finger pivots down one, and then these two fingers come off and we move down to here to the A7. But as I said, this is only halfway. The other half is we're going to take our middle finger, place on the second fret of the G, and our ring place on the second fret of the E string, and take the index off. And this is a D7. We sometimes call this the Hawaiian D7 chord, because there's no D note in it, but we can use it as a D7, it works great. So we're going to play this chord, then a G7, and here's the important note. These two fingers, they don't have to move their relative position, they just have to move down strings. Because on a G7 chord, we're going to have our middle finger here on 2 of the C, ring finger here on 2 of the A, and then our index comes down on 1 of the E. So we have our D7, which again, these two are on the G and E strings, G7, and then C to finish it all. So that second half is. So when we put it together, it goes. And again, what this is teaching is some important, efficient movements. Fingers sliding into position, fingers moving into position, fingers staying in position, going all the way through. It's actually also the chords for, I think, Ain't She Sweet, as well as 5'2", I think. But anyways, it's a really great chord progression to get that, fretting hand more involved. So doing a few reps of those makes for a great side dish, so to speak, right? Now, for the salad, the part that no one wants, even though, again, people love salad, but anyways, for the salad, we're going to do a scale. We're going to do a C major scale. And we've actually worked on a C major scale before in webcam sessions. So if you haven't checked out that video, please check it out in the link down below, because we're going to play it as if you already know how, or at least relatively know how. So a C major scale is going to consist of a C note, a D note, E, F, G, A, B, and C. Now what's really helpful when learning something like a scale is to actually say the notes just like I did there. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And to make sure that you're using correct fretting habits with it, meaning you want to make sure that you're using the one finger per fret and that you're not just trying to use one finger the whole way, right? Now let's go ahead and try it descending, starting with the high C here. We have C, B, A, G, F, E, D, C, right? Again, if you've never played a C major scale, that would probably seem a little bit overwhelming, but please do check out the video. We go into great detail of how to play a C major scale and what it is and all of that. But working on something like a scale can really help fulfill some music theory to start to learn the note names, as well as to get some mechanics of the two hands working more together, right? So now there's one more part, which is everyone's favorite, which is dessert. And this is going to be a little bit anticlimactic, because what the dessert should be is whatever your favorite thing is. Oftentimes people think that when they're practicing a ukulele, they need to be working on things that they're not comfortable with, that are putting them outside of what they know so that they can make progress. And that's true. We constantly want to be introducing new challenges to stimulate us and to be able to overcome those challenges and get better. But it's never a bad idea to play things that are fun. We call them guilty pleasures, for instance, or noodling time. And I think that the dessert of your meal of practice should always be something that you really enjoy playing. It could be something very simple, it could be something that you've been playing for a long time. It doesn't actually really matter what it is, but just like you want to end a great meal with a dessert that you love, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure, you want to end your practice session with something fun. And that leaves your practice session on a good note and making you want to pick up and start playing again soon, right? So every good thing has every good meal ends with a great dessert, right? Anyways, so this is just an example practice session. Obviously, it's not the amount of time that you should spend practicing on it. To talk about that just a little bit, each one of those steps that we sort of worked on, you could spend several more minutes on, and really, depending on you, is how long you're going to spend on it. Meaning, if you're really struggling with the strumming, spend some extra time with it. If you're really struggling with the scale, maybe spend extra time with that. It's going to be determined by your skill level and what you're comfortable with. But overall, I think that doing those things will create a really nice little practice routine for a beginner player that's looking to take a couple next steps. Next week, we're going to work on a more involved and more advanced practice session that's going to focus more on finger picking and some of that kind of chord melody type of sound. And so I'm really excited to work on that because that's more of the stuff that I liked to practice and like to practice. And so if you guys want to see more videos like this and this kind of practice session routine, please leave a comment down below. Might be something for a series moving forward. We'll see. And I'll see you guys next week for the next set of these 3 videos where we'll work on a more advanced practice routine. Thanks.